Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show. By the way, it's the third time I've tried to actually record this show. I started on Father's Day and I got stopped quite a few times. It was kind of a very Father Day, so my kids were around, so I got stopped a few times. And I've been at a very busy week and I'm getting ready to go on vacation. So I'm just trying to get this show in. I've got some questions that have been asked, and probably I could even end up missing a couple. I took all the ones I could see here. I'm not trying to look and see if there's any more that have come in recently. I'm going to throw two more into this. I just saw them. Make sure they're all in there. Okay. We'll add them to 65. There we go. This is my 65th show, according to my numbers. So can't believe I've done 65 of these shows. So I'm hoping this is going to be a quick show, but it may not be. It depends on what I actually, how I actually cover some of this stuff. So let's jump in. All right. And the first question comes from Adam. And he said, I'm not sure if I asked this question before. How often do you change your drum heads? To be honest, Adam, I don't change my drum heads that often. On my main kit, I change them about once every 6 to 12 months. Somewhere, usually around 9 months. Sometimes I'll buy heads ahead and they'll just sit on the shelf for a while until I really feel like they need to be replaced. And I'm talking about the tom heads. On the other kits, a lot of times hand-me-down heads get handed down to those kits. The little Gretsch kit, Jazz Gretsch kit. This concert tom kit is still getting hand-me-down heads coming to it. But I am planning on buying a set of heads for the little Gretsch kit and for the concert tom kit. I'm thinking about clear ambassadors for this concert tom kit, just to have something that really pops and you can mute, as opposed to going with emperors. Right now I've got coated emperors on it. I'm thinking about, for that kit, pinstripes, believe it or not. I play a lot of church stuff, and the pinstripes are just a really all-purpose rock and roll jazz head. I can go any direction with that. And my main kit's got ambassadors on it presently, so for the toms. Snares get changed a little bit more often. The ones I love to use, I change a little more often. I buy extra heads and change them when I feel a snare head needs to be changed. Kick drums rarely get changed every year. Rarely. So most of the time my kick drums are going to get what I get, and I'll even recycle sometimes kick drum heads, flip them around and stuff like that. I do find with Remo heads that breaking them in is when they sound better than when you first put them on. Evans heads sound better when you first put them on, and then after a couple months of play they seem to lose it for me. So I get a little more durability out of Remo. That's my experience, except for the EMAT head. The EMAT head always sounds good as long as the plastic doesn't break and the little ring comes out. Everything else sounds great. So, but great question, Adam, and I sure do appreciate that. Next question comes from Matthew Jackson, CCM drummer. He asks, Matthew's living in Brazil right now. I'm going to give you a little backstory. He's living in Brazil presently. While in Brazil, he's bought a cheap Brazilian kit, and he's asking a question about upgrading the hoops on it, because the triple flange hoops have got the ones that are made in Brazil or made in Taiwan for Brazilian sales, which is a reasonably priced kit in Brazil, have really bad hoops. So he's asking if he should rehoop the bottom and the top head. I'm not sure you need to rehoop any of them, to be honest. I think if you put a thicker head, and that was another question he had, was what kind of head you think sounds good on a shell with just a round over. And I think any cheap drum kit, no matter if it's in Brazil or it's here in the United States, when it comes to student level or below type kits, I always recommend using coated emperors or clear emperors, because 2-ply heads seem to make those drums sound punchy and tubby and usable, where the thinner heads really show the blemishes of the sound of those drums. That's my opinion of that. As far as the bottom hoop, do I think it's going to help or not? be honest, I don't really think it's going to make all that big of a difference. That's just my opinion on this subject. I guess you'd have to try it to see if it makes a difference. But I think when you're starting with an inferior constructed drum, why spend that kind of money on it? That's my opinion on that one. So if you're going to buy the top hoops, don't buy the bottom hoops. That would be my opinion. Anyhow, great question, Matthew. And I may have another question from you in here, I think, or I just answered your other question. Not sure. All right. Alan Duncan's my third question. He said, great show, Earl. What's the story with the boom stand on the left side? Is there some sort of connector piece attached to it? Now, he is talking about this boom stand right here. And there is a story to it. This is called a Aquarian Cymbal Spring. It's actually the first product Aquarian made before they made drum heads by the inventor Roy Burns, who passed away recently. And Roy Burns saw that guys were mounting their China cymbals upside down, and they were getting really choked down on the boom arms or the cymbal arms, and they were cracking. And he felt that if there was a little bit more play when you hit a cymbal, it's less likely to crack the cymbal. So I've been using this 16-inch thin crash on there. I usually use Chinas on this, but somehow it ended up in here, and it's become part of this cymbal stand for the last couple months. My stands end up where they end up these days. When I need something, I make a change. Like this is one of my Yamaha stands that I've been kicking around. It's got the splash on it, It works well with splash cymbals, crash cymbals, anything you're going to beat on. It's a good spring to have, and it gives you that kind of play. So when I hit it, it kind of bounces a little bit, bounces a little bit more than this, which chokes it. Okay, so it's less likely to crack the cymbal. That's the concept that Roy was going with. He sold a lot of these. They're still for sale. I will say the one thing you need to know about this product is that when you install it properly, there's a little screw on it, and it gets screwed down with a screwdriver, and it will wreck the threading. And you don't want to go all the way down to where it's not threaded, because then it's going to impede the spring. So it's got to be above. So I don't think this is digging up any further than right about here. So this has got all that play to play. But I've never taken it off the stand, and once it got put on, it's there. The yellow is the medium one, and I think the red one is the heavy duty. And I also find that the rubber makes a little noise, so I like to use a felt instead. That's just my trick. And I've been doing it for a long time. So, anyhow, great question though, Alan, and thank you for it. Alan had another question, and his question was about chrome over brass Dynasonic. He said, could you talk a little bit about Rogers Dynasonic drums? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. I've been playing a chrome over brass Dynasonic. I guess it's a good drum for rudimental drumming, but for a straight backbeat, I prefer a simple snare mechanism. Now, what you need to know about a Rogers Dynasonic drum, if it's truly a Rogers Dynasonic drum with the proper strainer, is it has what they call an active snare strainer on the bottom. So normally, let me put this somewhere. Normal snare drums just got snares, okay? And it's tension from the sides, okay? Snares are pulled across to tension from the sides. What the Dynasonic has is a bracket on it, and the bracket is held in by the side plates. And then the snares themselves can be adjusted with a self-adjusting knob over here or over here, and you can tension it to your liking. So you can have it pulled tightly, but loosen up some of the snares, and it gives it some different effects. Of course, it's not highly adjustable, meaning you can't reach down and do it. Most of your adjustment still ends up being on the strainer itself. That's been my experience with it. I had one for a while. I'm not a big fan of the Rogers Dynasonic, the chrome over brass or the wood ones, but there are guys that swear by them. They love those drums. They have a certain sound. It all depends on what you're into, okay? Now, there's a company called Rhythm Tech that makes tambourines and other percussion items, and they make a version of an active snare strainer that I've tried on a snare drum too, and I didn't like it. So for me, that active snare design doesn't really do it for me. That's the only way to say that. But if you're into the Dynasonic thing, then that might be really cool. Now, as far as the brass drum goes, I think of Black Beauty, of Ludwig Black Beauty's got a better brass sound. It's a more classic sound than you get with a Dynasonic chrome over brass. That's my opinion. And again, let me preface it by saying it's my opinion. Those that love Rogers drums, I've got some friends out there that love Rogers drums, they're going to say what they want to say about Rogers drums, okay? So the Dynasonic drums have that active snare strainer. That's what makes them different than other drums. That's the big difference. I'm not a big fan of the drums, and I'm not spending big money for one. There is a reissue of the Dynasonic now, so you can get wood drums. One of the hardest things to find in collectability-wise, vintage collectability, is wooden Dynasonic drums from the 60s and 70s, especially 6.5 by 14, but 5 by 14 too. Those wood drums are more collectible than the chrome over brass drums. So that's the other thing you need to know. So now there's a whole new line of wooden drums coming out. You'll see the Rogers moniker on it. They're also making hardware, and they're making a pedal. I have seen the pedal. It's called a Dynamatic pedal. The original Rogers pedal was called a Swivomatic pedal. That's because the pedal swived. You can make it not just straight on. It can make it off to the side on angles and stuff. But this one doesn't give you that adjustment, but it does have every other adjustment that pedal has, where you can make it on a 26-inch bass drum or an 18-inch bass drum and move the beater down by adjusting knobs on it. And it's really a cool pedal. For $200, it's something I'd like to try someday, but I just haven't spent the money on. And if you're looking at the Tama Classic hardware, that's where I got into this Dynamatic pedal. I was looking at the Tama Classic hardware, and they have a version of a Swivomatic, which doesn't swiv either. And it's much cheaper looking and feeling than that Rogers pedal. If you're looking at it, any of the new Tama pedals, and I'm a big Tama pedal player. Camco chain drive, Iron Cobra Flexi Flyer with the strap on it. I have a double pedal. Any Iron Cobra pedal or Speed Cobra pedal just kicks tail. I think they're great pedals. Even the older ones. I've bought a couple older ones for churches and stuff, and they really are beautiful pedals. Tama's now got a new pedal that's a direct drive pedal that seems like it's a monster. I haven't played it yet, and I'm hoping to play it someday soon, but that pedal might be even more desirable for me to buy than the Rogers one. But anyhow, I'm quite happy with my pedals at this point, so I'll just leave it at that. But that's that. Great question, Alan. Great question. Let's see. I want to make sure I get all the questions. Matthew Jackson did ask me the bearing edge question. I did cover it. Here's another question. I had a couple other. No, I did add the questions I needed to add. That's good. All right. We'll start with Sam Wilson's question. Sam Wilson, he asked the question for the next one. What do you think of Meinl Cymbals? Are you a fan of the super dark, dry, trashy sounds that some of the Byzance extra dry stuff is like out there? And if you were to use these sort of cymbals, what type of music would you use them in, and how would they fit into your playing? Brilliant videos. Thank you very much, Sam, for that comment. I have not played the Meinl, and that's because I've got Paiste, I've got Zildjian, and I've got Sabian. But there are some really different sounding Meinl, and they are into that dry, dark thing. Now, this is a Paiste. I bought this Paiste before I bought most of my Paistes that you see on. Matter of fact, everything on this kit except for these hi-hats, this Paiste was before. Then this is a Dark Energy Mark I prototype. And it's got that kind of dark, dry thing going on. Who had that dark, dry thing? It's a Steve Gadd sound. It really is a Steve Gadd sound. And Steve Gadd is the one that made that kind of famous. And the way he did it, the way a lot of guys got into that dark, dry thing, was a dark cymbal, K-like type cymbal, with tape on the bottom to dry it up. That's super dry. A little more tape on it would cause that. A lot of times what I do to show you the tape effect is just put a piece of moon gel on it. Now, what kind of music would you use that in? Jazz, rock, funk, R&B, all those musics. So the Byzance dry cymbals by Meinl are really cool if you're into that. The problem is I've been actually moving from the dark, because I started in HH dark Sabians in the 80s, looking for that K sound. Eventually found my darkest, most jazz-like dark cymbal, like jazz K-like cymbal to me is the Corope cymbal that came out in 2014, and I picked up a 22 that year, and then I picked up a 19. I love those cymbals, but they are just the dark thing. And now I'm starting to move back to more middle of the road cymbals that kind of go through like these giant beats, which this Giant Beat 20 multi is a crash and a ride, and it's just got a nice shimmer and frequency range that cuts through the mix, just like the Big Beat, the 22-inch Big Beat. So that's where I've gone. Now, of the Meinl cymbals that I've seen, none of that dark Benny Greb stuff, sand rides, all that stuff, none of that's been where I wanted to be. I will say the Binance Foundry cymbals, I don't know what they're calling them. There's a name for them, something Foundry. They're the new line of very high-end cymbals. Look very good and they sound very good. Again, they're kind of like the Peisty Masters dark, dry, thin cymbals that they've been putting out. It's kind of like the Sabian Artisans. It's kind of like the Zildjian, Corope, and Constantinoples. So you're basically getting Byzance Meinl trying to make those cymbals, or go for any Istanbul. Okay? Everybody's trying to make cymbals, and there's so many cymbals out there. So if you dig Meinl, buy them. I mean, the cost of buying a whole set of cymbals is thousands of dollars today. So once you've invested those thousands of dollars somewhere else, it's kind of hard to switch companies. Unless you think mixing them is cool, and I do that once in a while. Sometimes I put a Zildjian with a Peisty or a Sabian. I've been doing that for years, actually. Matter of fact, for years I had these dark, I mean, these are my Rude hi-hats, 14-inch Rudes. But they are kind of a strange, dark cymbal, and they're not as rude as you think. You can get the kind of light touch on it if you want to. It's all about how you hit things, anyhow. But I don't know. If Meinl gave me an endorsement, maybe I'd use them. No? Maybe not. I don't know. I probably wouldn't get a real endorsement, would I? Get one of those B endorsements, C endorsements where I buy them. That's another question for another day, isn't it? All right, but that's a good question, Sam. Great question, and I do appreciate that. And thank you for the kind words about my videos. I've really been trying to have a lot of fun with my videos, and hope you guys realize that. Been trying to have a lot of fun. Matter of fact, this week I released, let's see what I did release. I released a police video that I used this kit for pretty much, and that was a lot of fun. And then I was able to release Just You and Me, a video I made 8-9 months ago, last year, and I finally released that, so from Chicago. So I was happy to release that. And I got a few more in the can for next week when I'm away, that I will release at some point, and I'm getting rid of some of my back catalog. But it will be time to make some new drum covers soon, that's for sure. Anyhow, my last question is from Michael Perry. And Michael Perry, thank you for another question. He said, for the next Ask Earl Anything, what are your thoughts on heel up versus heel down on bass drum playing? I typically play heel down most of the time, but occasionally play heel up. Thanks. The answer to this question is simple. I play both. I play heel down when I'm playing jazz and I'm feathering the bass drum. When I'm playing it really lightly, I have a tendency to play that heel down. And when I'm trying to go for power, I get my heel off the pedal. So I play both versions of it depending on what sound I'm going for. Sound is the reason why I do a lot of things with my hands and my feet. I'm going for sounds. It's all about making music to me. What my ears are trying to do with my hands and my feet are make the music I hear in my head. And that's the interesting thing. When I do drum covers, I try to make music with them the way I hear things. Matthew Jackson, who's asked a question, he was the one who inspired me to do Just You and Me months ago when he released his version of it. I did it for him mostly to kind of show him how I approach a Danny Seraphine song. Now, any of you that have been longtime Earl drum followers, watching my videos know I love Chicago. If you watch any of my Chicago videos, you're getting Earl's version of Danny because I have Danny in me so deeply in me. Okay? So when I play Just You and Me, I am playing the things I used to try to play as a kid, playing that song. Because Chicago 9, Chicago's Greatest Hits, was the first Chicago album I bought. Now, I heard them before that, but the first one I bought was that album. And it had all the hits. Make Me Smile, 25 or 64, Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is, Beginnings, Color My World, Just You and Me, Feeling Stronger Every Day, I've Been Searching So Long, Wishing You Were Here, Saturday in the Park, might have missed one or two. But anyhow, I think I got the majority of them. And that was the beginning of my journey into Chicago. Then I went back and bought all the albums. I bought all the albums. I had everything all the way up to Chicago 18. And that's when I kind of started not buying their albums in 17, 18, and 19 were really tough albums for me. Number one, Danny wasn't playing on everything. They were bringing studio guys in. And they were just going formulaic, big ballad sound to make hit records. It just got boring to me. And Chicago became boring. One of the best albums they made after that, I love their first Christmas album, and that's not with Danny on it, but we played it for years at Christmas time for my kids. That was one. And their big band album, the one where they had Caravan and some of those other big band kind of hits that they did. Tristan Bowden sounded great on those albums. Those are favorites of mine. But everything else they've tried to do since then, their live stuff with all the drummers, even Tris, it's okay. Tris is a great player. Tris is not Danny. And Danny's Danny. So I was trying to play Danny. That's what I do in my covers. When I played the Police song, I'm trying to play Stu Copeland, my version of Stu Copeland. Now you could say, well, that's not Stu Copeland. That's not a Stu Copeland lick. You're right. It's not a lick. It's something that I've mutated from something else that I put in me, and it comes out as me. Because all my licks are me now. Those rolls I do that were influenced by Buddy Rich and Danny Seraphine, those are me. Those tom fills around the toms, where I got them from, those are me trying to emulate Gadd or Billy Cobham or whoever I was listening to. There's so many guys that are influencing me. All my backbeat stuff is Jeff Porcaro, John Robinson, Rick Marotta, Russ Kunkel. Those guys influenced me to play better time, steadier time, more studio-like. Plus playing in the studio and realizing it's Jim Keltner. Jim Keltner's the creative one. He plays solid time and then he plays these creative things. All these guys are in me. So what comes out of me is me, but the aggression of Stu Copeland in that Police video is me trying to channel Stu Copeland. When I'm playing Chicago, I'm trying to channel Danny Seraphine. And Matthew Jackson said something to me in his comment about the video, because I sent it to him first, and he said, you didn't play all the notes exact, and you weren't playing with a drumless track, so you were definitely getting stuck on some of the Danny licks, and you were competing. And he's correct. That's totally correct. But I will tell you that the vibe I played that tune to, I haven't seen anybody else play it with that vibe except Danny Seraphine. or some pro guy that plays with Chicago, like Cym Spring or Fredo Reyes now is playing with them. And those guys put their thing on it. They put their version of Danny on it. Because if you listen to Fredo Reyes talk about this, Wally basically says, Danny was a huge influence of mine. So when he's playing those tunes, and he's got a channel, a YouTube channel, he puts them up, he plays them clean and perfect and Wally-like. And you can see the Danny influence in his playing, but it's still him coming out. Cym Spring, the same thing. Tris is clean, perfect, he's Tris, but he had some Danny influence that comes out. So when I play, Danny's influence comes out of me. And that's the key to this whole thing is, when you play covers, you try to emulate the people that are on the record. You try to get a little bit like the drummers who played on these things. And that's what I try to do. And if I can get some of the vibe on there and put some of that thing on it, then you know what? I'm doing a good cover. Drumless tracks let me really be me. But when you got to play over top of the drummer like I did with the Danny Seraphin thing, or like I've done some recent jazz covers, like the Promise Me the Moon cover, which is a guy named Victor Lewis played drums on that track. Great jazz, funk, R&B player who was playing with David Sanborn back in that day. Those guys, I'm not going to cop everything they did, but I'm trying to get a vibe going that's kind of me interpreting how I would approach those songs. So what I say to the guys who want to be exact, try to be exact. Okay? But if you're going to be exact, get the vibe. Because I look at guys' drum covers and I say, if there's a vibe to it, if they're going for the vibe, I'll stay in it a lot longer. Because I got to be honest, and you'll all be honest with me too, and I guarantee you this is true, we watch parts of each other's drum covers. I'm saying it. I'm saying it because I know it's true. We watch parts of drum covers. The ones that I stay in to the end are the ones that really have a vibe to it. If it's you playing and you're not in it, you're just playing the notes to get in it, it doesn't do as much for me as a guy who puts his passion into the music. What keeps me watching certain drummers on YouTube is that their passion comes out. You can't watch Vinny Colaiuta on a video and not see him just blowing his butt off. That's what you love. That's what you see when you see Tony Williams playing a track, an old track from back in Tony's day. You see him blowing his butt off, and you want to watch that. So if you're going to do a drum cover, give it your all. Put everything you got into it and show the passion. Because truthfully, that's the vibe I look for. I want the vibe. I want your vibe to come out. So that's my word of advice to all my friends who watch my videos and comment on my videos, that you guys, when you're doing your covers and you get something a little more than nice video from me, it's because I saw a little something in this one that was a little different than maybe the last time I saw it. Okay? Now, another thing about videos, I am not into critiquing your videos. So this was a very general comment. That was not on anybody. All right, so that was not meant to anybody. It was meant to the community. And let me say this, I have no desire to tell you how to play your covers and say, oh, you missed that note or you did that. I don't do that. That's not my vibe. My vibe is to be positive to everybody. But I will tell you my truth today. This is me telling my truth to you guys. I watch the videos of guys that have passion and play with heart. That's what I watch. And when I see your heart and I see your passion in it, I'm sticking around. And I think one of the reasons I hit 2,000 subscribers is because I put so much content out where you see my heart. I wear my drums on my sleeves. I'm going to go for it every time. And by the way, when I play on somebody's record and I'm working with an artist and they feel that, that's what I want that. That's what I want. So that's me. I don't need to be Danny Seraphin. I need to be Earl. That's who I need to be. Did Danny Seraphin have an influence on me? Yes, he did. All the great drummers that I listen to have an influence on me. But I need to be me. Passion for the music is key, critical. So I hope this made it on the video, because if nothing else about this Ask Earl Anything, I really wanted to say that. I wanted to say that's why I do what I do, to make the music and show the passion. And that's why I've gone to less production in my videos, more one-camera shoots, because you're watching the intensity of me playing. And I don't care if it's a pocket, it's a swing thing, it's a blues thing, it's a funk thing, it's an R&B thing, it's a disco. I don't care what it is. You are going to see me going for it because the tracks I put out are me going for it, or I don't really want to put them out. That's the truth. And sometimes I hold on to tracks because I'm not sure it's as good as it could be. But you know what? Most of my things that I don't think are as good as they could be are pretty good to most people. So most people just like them anyhow. But I'm always trying to get better, believe it or not. But I also know there's a law of diminishing returns. You're only going to take it so far. Why keep going? You know? So then you got to basically judge what you got. And that's what I do with Ask Earl Anything. I don't really cut this show. As you all know, I don't do jump cuts. I'm not bouncing around. I'm not trying to make it short and sweet. I'm just rapping with you, like if you're hanging at my studio. And by the way, if you ever come to South Florida, ring me up. I'd love to meet you, okay? That's one of the things I also do. I enjoy meeting the guys who watch my channel, and some of you know that because you've been here or we've gotten together while you've been in town. So anyhow, thanks for watching Ask Earl Anything. The next show will be probably in 2 weeks or so. Hopefully I get some questions. That's what makes the show. No questions, no show. Your questions make the show. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Awesome day. I'll see you guys in July. Bye.